My parents tried to give my inheritance to their favorite daughter, but I turned the tables. Hello, read it. From the earliest days, favoritism within the family cast a long shadow. The older sibling, now a 28-year-old man, grew up under the glaring contrast between his parents' treatment of him and their adoration of his younger sister, Amy. This disparity was not subtle but rather woven into the fabric of their everyday lives. Amy, 3 years younger, was showered with attention and privileges, leaving her brother to navigate his childhood largely on his own. The differences were apparent even in early memories. When he turned 5, his birthday was marked with a modest store-bought cake and a small family dinner. In contrast, Amy's second birthday that same year was a grand celebration. The backyard was transformed into a magical wonderland, complete with professional face painters, a bouncy castle, and even a petting zoo. These moments, though seemingly small at the time, set the stage for a pattern of unequal treatment that would only deepen over the years. As they grew older, the imbalance became even more pronounced. Amy always had the newest toys, the trendiest clothes, and the undivided attention of their parents. By comparison, her brother often had to make do with hand-me-downs or items he saved up for on his own. One particularly painful memory stood out. At age 10, he spent months saving his allowance to buy a new bike. No sooner had he proudly brought it home than Amy decided she wanted one too. Rather than encouraging her to wait or save as he had, their parents immediately purchased a bike for her, one that was even nicer than his. The favoritism extended into their schooling as well. Amy's school events were treated as significant occasions, with their parents always in attendance, cheering her on. Meanwhile, his own achievements were consistently overlooked. He poured weeks of effort into preparing for a leading role in his fourth-grade play, only to find his parents arriving late on the night of the performance. They missed his scene entirely, having been delayed by consoling Amy over a minor stomachache. Academically, he excelled, often achieving straight A's and winning accolades, yet these accomplishments barely registered with his parents. They were quick to celebrate Amy's smallest victories, like scoring a B+ in a challenging subject, with special dinners and gifts. By contrast, his triumphs, a regional science fair win, joining the math club, and consistently excelling in school, were met with indifference or dismissive remarks. High school was no different. Determined to earn his parents' approval, he juggled a 4.0 GPA with leadership roles as the editor of the school newspaper and captain of the debate team. Despite these efforts, his achievements were constantly overshadowed by Amy's far less impressive endeavors. She barely maintained a C average and spent much of her time with friends, yet their parents continued to praise her for being carefree and authentic. Even his acceptance into a prestigious summer program at Harvard during his junior year of college, a rare honor, was met with lukewarm acknowledgement. When he shared the news over dinner, his father shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dance performance, as if his success was an afterthought. The culmination of this indifference came during his departure for the Harvard program. The date coincided with one of Amy's dance recitals, and their parents chose to attend her performance rather than see him off. Left with no other option, he relied on a friend's parents to take him to the airport, a painful reminder of where he stood in their priorities. Even the college application process was emblematic of their unequal treatment. He spent months perfecting essays, engaging in extracurricular activities, and preparing for standardized tests, ultimately gaining admission to several elite universities with a substantial scholarship to his dream school. When he shared the news, his parents responded with muted enthusiasm and dismissive advice. In stark contrast, when Amy barely graduated high school and decided against attending college, they praised her decision as a bold rejection of societal expectations. To reward her, they gifted her a car, a gesture they had never even considered for him. These years of favoritism and neglect took a toll on his mental health. During college, he began therapy to address the anxiety and self-doubt that had plagued him for years. Gradually, he learned to validate himself and find pride in his accomplishments, even without his parents' approval. By his late 20s, he had built a life he could be proud of, graduating with honors, securing a stable job in finance, and buying his own home by the age of 27. His achievements, though unnoticed by his family, stood as a testament to his resilience. The latest chapter of this story unfolded after the death of his grandfather, a self-made businessman whose legacy was built on hard work and determination. In his will, the grandfather divided his estate equally among his children and grandchildren. For him, this inheritance represented an unexpected windfall, a significant amount of around $500,000. The money offered a chance to pay off student loans, invest in his future, and perhaps even start his own business. However, the joy of this unexpected gift was quickly tempered by his parents' reaction. They were visibly upset by the equal distribution of the inheritance, arguing that Amy deserved a larger share because of her financial struggles. Living in their basement and working part-time at a coffee shop, Amy was portrayed as someone in need of more support. This request, framed as a matter of fairness, starkly illustrated the depth of their favoritism. The reading of the will brought a surprising twist to long-standing family dynamics. The grandfather's decision to distribute his estate equally among his grandchildren and children was clear and final, yet it ignited a storm within the family. When the parents learned of the equal distribution, they were incensed. They argued that fairness demanded a different outcome, one that would see Amy receive the older siblings' share of the inheritance. Their reasoning was simple. Amy's financial struggles made her more deserving of the money. This insistence escalated quickly. The parents urged their son to act morally and relinquish his portion to Amy. When he refused, they unleashed a torrent of guilt and accusations, labeling him selfish and ungrateful. Every small instance where they had provided for him was dredged up, from paying for his braces to supplying school materials. These contributions, though appreciated, represented the bare minimum of parental support, particularly in light of the stark favoritism Amy had consistently enjoyed. The car they bought Amy, the shopping sprees, and their continued financial support for her at the age of 25 were conveniently omitted from their argument. The situation grew more serious when the father, acting as the executor of the will, took matters into his own hands. Declaring his interpretation of the grandfather's intentions, he announced his decision to transfer the entirety of the son's inheritance to Amy. This blatant overreach not only disregarded the legalities of the will, but also underscored how little regard the parents had for their older child. Efforts to reason with them fell on deaf ears. The son pointed out that the grandfather had always treated all his grandchildren equally and was well aware of their individual circumstances. Yet, the parents dismissed his arguments, claiming they were acting in accordance with what the grandfather would have wanted. They even accused him of dishonoring the deceased by suggesting otherwise. Amy, meanwhile, maintained an awkward neutrality. She refrained from criticizing their parents and offered little support when approached privately. Her response was to trust that their parents knew best, an attitude shaped by years of dependency and a need for their approval. Though her brother understood her position, he couldn't help but wish that, just once, she would stand by him. Frustrated and feeling betrayed, he turned to his grandmother, the grandfather's widow, for guidance. Her response was swift and emphatic. Outraged by the parents' actions, she confirmed that they had no authority to alter the will. She revealed a key piece of information. Several years earlier, the parents had attempted to persuade the grandfather to leave his entire estate to Amy. The grandfather had firmly rejected this request, insisting on treating all his grandchildren equally. To safeguard his wishes, he had included a clause in the will stating that anyone who challenged the equitable distribution would forfeit their portion. Armed with this knowledge, the son confronted his parents. The revelation of their earlier attempt to influence the will left them momentarily speechless. They weakly defended their actions, claiming they were only looking out for Amy's future. However, the grandmother wasted no time in taking action. She involved the will's co-executor and the family attorney, as well as the grandfather's other children. Together, they ensured that the will would be executed as intended, effectively halting the parents' scheme. Though the son's inheritance was secured, the fallout was immediate and far-reaching. His parents accused him of betraying the family by involving outsiders and turning relatives against them. His mother, in particular, was distraught, blaming him for creating a rift in the family. She insisted that his actions had shattered their trust and love, while his father went so far as to threaten disinheritance entirely. They even suggested that he would no longer be welcome in their home if he accepted the inheritance. The conflict divided the extended family. Some cousins, aware of the long-standing favoritism, supported him and commended his courage for standing up for himself. Others believed he should have yielded for the sake of family harmony, arguing that preserving peace was more important than financial gain. The tension also strained the relationships between the father and his siblings, who were united in their disapproval of his actions. Amy found herself caught in the middle of the turmoil. She privately admitted to her brother that she felt guilty about the situation but was unwilling to challenge their parents. Years of dependency and a desire for their approval had left her unable to break free from their influence. While he didn't hold her entirely responsible, he couldn't help but wish for her support, if only for once in their lives. The ordeal dredged up painful memories of past injustices. The countless times he had been overlooked, the celebrations he had missed, and the successes that had gone unacknowledged resurfaced with fresh intensity. This singular event seemed to encapsulate a lifetime of unfairness, bringing unresolved feelings of hurt and resentment to the surface. Though the family was fractured, he remained resolute in his decision to honor the grandfather's wishes. Monthly family gatherings, once a routine part of his life, became fraught with tension. He chose to skip the most recent meal, unable to bear the cold stares and unspoken accusations. The estrangement weighed heavily on him, yet he found solace in knowing that he had stood up for himself and the values his grandfather had upheld. Despite the chaos, he held firmly to the belief that fairness and integrity mattered more than appeasing others at the cost of his own dignity. Though the road ahead seemed uncertain, he was determined to move forward, honoring his grandfather's legacy and finding strength in the choices he had made. For the first time in his life, he felt a flicker of empowerment. By standing up to his parents, he was declaring his own worth and refusing to be dismissed or diminished. It was a complex emotion, both liberating and deeply unsettling. The confrontation brought a sense of justice, but the weight of family drama was exhausting, dragging him into a state of anxiety he hadn't experienced since his college years. The stress began to manifest physically, with anxiety attacks returning. To cope, he started considering a return to therapy. While confident that standing his ground was the right choice, doubts lingered. Was it selfish to prioritize his inheritance over family harmony? Should he have given the money to Amy to preserve peace? These questions gnawed at him, forcing him to confront his conflicting desires to break free from being the scapegoat while fearing the total loss of his family. It was a mental tug-of-war, compounded by the hostility from his parents and the uncertainty of his relationships with the rest of the family. In the months that followed, events escalated quickly. Legal clarity brought some relief. With the advice of an attorney, he confirmed that his position was legitimate and his father's actions were not only unethical but illegal. The lawyer helped him document everything and prepare for legal action if necessary, though thankfully it never came to that. His grandmother, along with her attorney and the other executor of the will, ensured that his grandfather's wishes were upheld. After several weeks of tense negotiations, threats of litigation, and heated exchanges, the law prevailed. His father was removed as executor, and the inheritance was distributed exactly as the will specified. The fallout, however, was profound. His parents initially doubled down, accusing him of greed and neglecting his sister. They attempted to rally extended family members to their side, spreading unfounded rumors that he had manipulated his grandfather into favoring him. Despite their efforts, most relatives saw through the deception. About a month after the legal resolution, tensions reached a boiling point at a family gathering. His parents, uninvited, arrived unexpectedly and created a scene. His father angrily accused him of stealing from Amy and of turning their grandmother against them. His mother, in an emotional outburst, hurled an old photo album at his feet, claiming he had ruined cherished family memories. It was a chaotic and humiliating event that required several relatives to intervene and escort his parents out. Amidst the turmoil, his grandmother became his strongest ally. She shared stories of how proud his grandfather had always been of his accomplishments, recounting how he had saved newspaper clippings of his awards, copies of his college acceptance letters, and even the program from a university play that his parents had missed. This insight, both bittersweet and heartwarming, offered a glimpse of the unconditional support he had long yearned for. Determined to set the record straight, his grandmother organized a family gathering, excluding his parents, where she detailed the history of favoritism and revealed incidents that even he had forgotten or never known about. Hearing his struggles acknowledged brought a sense of validation, though it also reopened old wounds. Meanwhile, Amy underwent a transformation. After several heartfelt conversations with their grandmother, she found the courage to admit that their parents' favoritism had been damaging. She apologized for not standing up for him earlier, explaining that her dependence on their parents had made her too afraid to challenge them. Their conversations were deeply emotional, exploring the effects of their upbringing on both of them. Amy revealed that being the favored child wasn't as ideal as it seemed. Her parents' constant interference had deprived her of independence, leaving her feeling stifled and unable to grow. She shared stories of times when she longed to achieve things on her own, only to have her parents take over and rob her of those experiences. These conversations marked a turning point in their relationship. The siblings began to rebuild the bond that had been fractured by years of parental favoritism. They started meeting regularly, supporting each other through the family crisis. Amy surprised everyone when she announced her decision to use her inheritance to pay for college. Inspired by her brother's courage in standing up for himself, she resolved to take control of her life. She enrolled in a local community college with plans to transfer to a 4-year university, a step that symbolized her desire to forge her own path. The parents' reaction to Amy's newfound independence was a mix of shock and resistance. They initially lashed out, blaming her brother for turning her against them and attempting to guilt her into abandoning her plans. When their emotional manipulation failed, they shifted tactics, though the specifics of their new strategy were yet to fully unfold. Despite the lingering conflict, the experience brought a sense of clarity. He realized that standing up for himself was not only an act of self-preservation but also a step toward breaking the cycle of favoritism and dependency that had defined their family for so long. While the road ahead remained fraught with challenges, he found solace in the support of his grandmother, the growing strength of his relationship with Amy, and the knowledge that he had honored his grandfather's legacy. After countless heartfelt conversations with her mother-in-law and seeing the profound transformation in Amy's life, his mother began to confront the reality of her actions. Years of favoritism and neglect had caused deep wounds, not only in her relationships with her children but also within herself. Slowly, she started to take responsibility, acknowledging the harm she had caused. For the first time, she recognized how her choices had shaped her son's struggles and how they had placed a burden of dependency on Amy. The first step toward reconciliation came when she reached out to apologize. It wasn't easy for her. The words were hesitant, laden with a mixture of guilt and vulnerability. She admitted to the unfairness of her behavior and expressed a desire to make amends. Alongside this, she took a brave step by starting therapy to work through her patterns and biases, a decision that reflected her genuine desire to change. For him, this gesture was meaningful but bittersweet. He cautiously welcomed her effort, setting firm boundaries to protect himself from the possibility of future harm. While he held hope for their relationship, he knew trust would take time to rebuild. Forgiveness was not immediate. It was a journey, one he was willing to embark on slowly and thoughtfully. Unfortunately, his father remained steadfast in his anger and denial. Refusing to acknowledge any fault, he cast himself as the victim of the family conflict. His bitterness extended to both children. He became cold and distant toward Amy after her decision to pursue higher education, a path he viewed as a betrayal. Toward his son, his demeanor was even harsher, marked by silence and thinly veiled hostility. In his frustration, the father resorted to attempts at control. He issued ultimatums, threatening to sell their childhood home or sever ties entirely unless his children came to their senses. These actions revealed the depth of his unwillingness to reflect or change. While these tactics no longer held power over his son or Amy, the emotional weight of their father's estrangement was undeniable. It was painful to witness their father choose pride over connection, distancing himself from the very people who had once sought his approval so earnestly. In the midst of this turmoil, the extended family became an unexpected source of strength. Moving closer to his father's siblings opened new avenues of connection and support. Over time, his aunts and uncles shared their own struggles with his father's difficult personality, stories that shed light on long-standing patterns of behavior. Knowing that others had faced similar challenges eased his sense of isolation, offering reassurance that he was not alone in his experiences. Bonds with cousins also deepened, particularly those who had supported him during the inheritance dispute. Together, they created new traditions, including a monthly cousins' meal that became a cherished respite from the tension of the older generation. These gatherings, free of drama and full of warmth, brought a sense of unity and belonging that had been missing for much of his life. On the financial front, the inheritance brought a sense of security and opportunity he had never known. The first priority was paying off his college loans, an act that lifted a significant weight from his shoulders. With the help of a financial advisor, he built a diverse investment portfolio, ensuring long-term stability while setting aside funds for future goals. One of these goals, inspired by his personal journey, was the possibility of opening a community center. The vision was ambitious yet deeply personal, a space offering affordable mental health care and financial literacy seminars designed to empower others facing similar struggles. The inheritance also allowed him to invest in therapy, not only for himself but for Amy as well. This decision proved transformative for both siblings. Therapy provided tools to set healthy boundaries with their parents and to begin healing from the emotional scars of their upbringing. The process was neither quick nor easy, but it brought gradual, meaningful change. He found himself growing stronger, more resilient, and more capable of validating his own worth without relying on the approval of others. Through this process, a surprising realization emerged. His experiences had ignited a passion for helping others navigate family dysfunction and emotional neglect. He began exploring the idea of returning to school to study family therapy, specifically focusing on adult children of emotionally immature parents. Meanwhile, he started volunteering at a local youth facility, mentoring children from challenging family situations. This work brought him immense fulfillment, offering the chance to provide the kind of guidance and support he had longed for as a child. The idea of giving back extended even further. He considered creating a scholarship fund for young people facing similar circumstances, using a portion of his inheritance to create opportunities for those in need. It was a way to honor his own journey, while helping others forge a path to independence and success. Meanwhile, his relationship with Amy continued to flourish. Without the influence of their parents, they were able to rebuild their bond on their own terms. The two siblings established a tradition of siblings' days, dedicating time each month to connect and enjoy activities together. These outings became a source of joy and healing, a reminder of the simple, unburdened connection they had shared as children. A recent hiking trip and picnic stood out as a particularly poignant moment, an experience of genuine closeness and laughter that felt like reclaiming something lost. His parents, however, remained a complex and challenging presence in his life. While his mother's steps toward reconciliation offered hope, his father's refusal to change created a barrier that felt insurmountable. For now, he chose to focus on nurturing relationships that brought him peace and fulfillment, rather than investing energy into trying to mend a bond his father seemed unwilling to repair. Through it all, he discovered a strength and resilience he hadn't known he possessed. Standing up for himself had been a painful but necessary act, one that brought growth, clarity, and new possibilities. In doing so, he not only honored his own worth but also inspired others, most notably Amy, to take control of their lives and pursue independence. Though the road was far from easy, He found purpose and satisfaction in creating a life defined not by the scars of his past, but by the hope and potential of his future. Rebuilding a relationship with his mother had been a slow, delicate process, but it brought moments of cautious hope. Her consistent commitment to therapy allowed her to recognize the harm her favoritism had caused. For the first time, she expressed genuine remorse, acknowledging how her choices had shaped not only her children's struggles, but also her own guilt and regret. They began meeting for one-on-one lunches, carving out spaces for honest and heartfelt conversations. These talks were often challenging, as they delved into painful memories and unresolved wounds. Yet, each discussion brought a small step toward healing. Progress was not without its imperfections. There were moments when old habits resurfaced, or when her guilt led to defensiveness. Still, the effort was evident, and it felt meaningful to see her actively trying to repair the damage. Forgiveness, he knew, was not a single act but an ongoing process, one that required time, patience, and trust. While he remained open to the possibility of reconciliation, he also maintained firm boundaries to protect himself from being hurt again. His father, on the other hand, remained entrenched in denial and bitterness. Refusing to acknowledge any fault, he clung to the narrative that his actions had been justified. He insisted that neither his attempts to alter the will nor his favoritism toward Amy had been inappropriate, framing himself as the wronged party. His refusal to reflect or take accountability created a rift that seemed increasingly insurmountable. His father's anger extended to both siblings. Toward Amy, it manifested as a cold distance, particularly after she chose to attend college, a decision he viewed as a betrayal. His disapproval hung heavy over her, though she had grown stronger in asserting her independence. Toward his son, the bitterness was sharper, leading to complete avoidance. His father refused to attend family gatherings if his son would be present, missing several important functions. While the estrangement was painful, the son began to release the need to change his father's mind or compel him to act differently. Letting go of that desire was freeing, even if it left an emotional void. Throughout this tumultuous period, his grandmother remained an anchor of stability and wisdom. Her unwavering support provided comfort and strength during moments of doubt. She continued to share stories about his grandfather, painting a vivid picture of a man who valued fairness, resilience, and self-advocacy. These stories offered both solace and inspiration, reminding him that his efforts to stand up for himself aligned with the principles his grandfather had cherished. More than a source of comfort, his grandmother became a mediator in family disputes. Her ability to address conflicts with compassion and clarity made her an invaluable presence. She championed justice and understanding, encouraging both siblings to continue advocating for themselves while fostering a sense of unity among the extended family. This journey reshaped his understanding of family. Over time, he realized that family is not solely defined by blood but by the bonds of love, respect, and mutual support. He found solace in a chosen family, close friends who offered encouragement, understanding, and solidarity. At the same time, his relationships with aunts, uncles, and cousins deepened, particularly with those who had stood by him during the inheritance conflict. Together, they created new traditions, like monthly cousins' meals, which became cherished opportunities to connect and celebrate their shared resilience. Setting boundaries and prioritizing self-care became cornerstones of his growth. He learned to say no to situations that compromised his mental health and embrace the importance of putting his well-being first. For much of his life, the pursuit of his parents' approval had consumed him, leaving little room for self-discovery or personal fulfillment. Now he was reclaiming that space, exploring new interests and hobbies that brought joy and meaning to his life. One of the most profound lessons he learned was the importance of valuing oneself. To others facing similar struggles, he would advise, never let anyone make you feel unworthy of what is rightfully yours, even if standing up for yourself causes conflict. Advocating for your own needs and well-being is not selfish. It is an act of self-respect. Family dynamics can be complex, but everyone deserves fairness, dignity, and respect. Seeking therapy, Surrounding oneself with supportive people and establishing clear boundaries are invaluable steps toward healing and growth. Looking ahead, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and possibility. The challenges he had faced had not only strengthened his character, but also clarified his values and aspirations. He was excited about the future and confident in the self-assurance he had cultivated through this journey. No longer defined by the scars of his past, he was ready to create a life built on authenticity, resilience, and hope. Amy's transformation continued to inspire. The siblings grew closer, their bond deepening as they navigated their journey together. Monthly siblings' days became a cherished tradition, filled with laughter, connection, and shared experiences. A recent hiking trip and picnic epitomized this newfound closeness, a moment of peace and joy that felt like a reclamation of their shared history. Without their parents' interference, they were free to rebuild their relationship on their own terms. As he reflected on his journey, he felt a profound sense of gratitude for the lessons it had taught him. He was determined to break the cycle of favoritism and emotional neglect, to build relationships founded on love, respect, and equality. Though his relationship with his father remained fraught, his mother's progress offered hope that healing was possible, even in the most challenging circumstances. The future, once uncertain, now felt full of promise. With the support of his grandmother, the love of his sister, and the encouragement of a chosen family of friends and relatives, he felt ready to embrace the next chapter of his life. The road had been long and difficult, but it had led to a place of strength, clarity, and purpose, a place where he could look forward with hope and confidence.